Hello, everybody, and welcome to another day of distance learning. So, today we're going to be focusing on finally getting to the Civil War. We've been leading up to it, right? We talk about all these compromises, all these little mini fights. Now we're in the thick of it, right? We're going to be talking today about the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, and then by 1861, how the first shots of the war are fired at Fort Sumter, how South Carolina and 6 other states, they secede, they start that trend in the South, and why all this happened, why Abraham Lincoln was the final little pressure point that sends us into war. So, in 1860, we have our election, right? Just like we always do. This time, though, the difference was there were a bunch of different people running, and Abraham Lincoln, in the South, they considered him to be an anti-slavery person, and they were worried that if he wins, he would ban slavery. Even though Abraham Lincoln and his party, the Republican Party at the time, they promised not to ban slavery in the South. They wanted to do away with slavery in the territories out west, but they promised specifically that they would not ban slavery. Despite this, in the South, 10 states, they don't even let him on the ballot because they think we want to eliminate any chance, or as many chances as they could, that this guy could win. Despite all this, and despite him not being able to be voted for in a huge portion of the country, he still wins. He gets 40% of the popular vote, right? We see he's in the red over here. And he also gets 180 electoral votes, meaning he commandingly won this election, despite it being split a few different ways. He is going to be our new president in 1860, and the South is not thrilled about that. So, like we said, the South, they're not happy. They think this guy is anti-slavery. He did say that he wasn't going to ban it, but they kind of see him as a force that maybe he'll change his mind. And they are not happy with that. They feel as though they have no say in government. Because again, this person who was not even on their ballots gets elected. They think that this means that the South, and especially all those states that did not have him on the ballot, they think that this means they have no power, right? What was the point of voting if they can't exercise their influence, if they can't affect the election? So they're worried, they are feeling defeated, and this is really the final nail in the coffin for the South and the North compromising or feeling together at all. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the South reaction going to be? Right? This is not a couple people arguing in the Senate. This is not some failed attempt to compromise. It's not some farmers killing each other in Kansas. This is the president, right? You're in the South, you're in Alabama, you're reading a newspaper. It says Abraham Lincoln's the new president. You didn't even see his name on the ballot when you went to turn it in. That's how much of a surprise. That's how much of a really insult it feels to some of these Southerners that are pro-slavery. So, the reaction. South Carolina, they're the first to secede, right? If we remember John C. Calhoun, he is his state of South Carolina. They secede before Lincoln even takes office, technically. The election ends. They think, right, that's the writing on the wall. Clearly, slavery is done for in America, so we need to form the Confederacy. We need to leave and show our protest. Lincoln, he tries to convince them, again, because he was not going to end slavery. That was not his plan. He tries to convince them that if they stay, they can work it out, it'll be fine, but they've had enough, and they secede. Once South Carolina secedes, these other 6 states down here in the dark green, they join South Carolina, right? We have Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. They're all gone. Later on, this map changes more once the actual war begins and these middle states have to pick a side. So that's early 1861. Confederacy is formed. Abraham Lincoln, he's not the president of these places as far as they're concerned. So even though all these places have left, there are still northern forts and there are still federal government troops and stuff like that all throughout the South, right? This is a coast. There are tons of forts on the coast just naturally. So what ends up happening is when they're trying to, try to mend this relationship before any shots have been fired, Abraham Lincoln says, hey, I need to still send supplies to my forts. So right where this arrow is, Fort Sumter is right around there. Abraham Lincoln, he needs to send, food, water, medicine, stuff like that to his troops and to the people that are living in Fort Sumter. But the South, in South Carolina, they say, hey, if you do that, we're going to consider that an act of war, so you cannot send these supplies. Lincoln does it anyway because, again, these people, they need supplies. That's the nature of living in a fort, right? You need somebody else to send you all your stuff to eat and whatnot. Lincoln does it anyway. He promises not to shoot. He says, hey, I don't want war, really. Again, he's trying to compromise. But South Carolina and the Confederacy at large, they consider this an act of war, so they attack Fort Sumter in April of 1861. And that is what we consider the first shots of the Civil War. Obviously, Fort Sumter, they were not planned, nor were they ready for being attacked by their own people in South Carolina. So they very quickly lose that battle. It only lasts like 2 days, I think. And so this picture here is once the Confederacy, they have beaten Fort Sumter, once they've taken it over, they raise their new Confederate flag, which you see here. It has 7 stars for these 7 states that we saw on this last slide, right? That's why it has 7 stars. Just like today, we have 50 stars. 7 stars for the 7 Confederate states. So Fort Sumter is now officially the first battle the North has lost, and that is the beginning of our war. So guys, we're going to be getting more deeply into this war. We have a lot of battles to talk about, a lot of new escalations and all that kind of stuff to end out our, really our year actually is going to be focused a lot on this. So everybody, hopefully this was helpful. Ask us any questions you have as always, and we'll see everybody on the next one. Have a lovely day.